Hello to anyone who happens to be listening. My name is Matt, and I am sharing this recording, which was taken during a home group Bible study in which I had the pleasure of being able to lead. And I wanted to share it because I believe it is something that is very applicable, especially in today's day and age, in which I'm discussing the difference between a heavenly perspective of things and an earthly perspective. And I want to go ahead and let you know that the recording was not something that was pre planned. So it was just done by somebody's phone. So sometimes the audio can shift a little bit into just one side. And I went ahead and for the video, I blocked it out just for the sake of there's other people in this group and I didn't want to put them on video. But I'm going to go ahead in the description and put in the material and verses that I am quoting during this study, and to go ahead and somewhat ease into the video, I start out talking about the Big Bang Theory and the fact that there are many scientists who say that the universe and the earth, the formation thereof, started billions of years ago. And there was actually two different physicists by the name of Dr. Russell Humphreys and Gerald Schroeder, who used Einstein's theory of relativity, which is the idea that time is manipulated by different things such as gravity. And they went ahead and used that equation in which they put one person on Earth and the other person on the edge of the universe. And it had some amazing outcomes, as you're about to hear. But I very much so hope that this can bless someone, and that it might be able to draw you a little bit closer to God and might pique your interest in one way or another to studying the Bible, studying His Word, studying all the different things that He has left for us. If you have any questions about any of the topics that were discussed, or you'd like to just know any further thoughts, please feel free to leave a comment below. All right, thank you very much and enjoy. And then they had a second one at the very edge of the universe. And when they factored in the distances, the time, everything else, they found out that if you have 6 days on Earth at the edge of the universe, because of how far away it is, all the gravity, everything else, the edge of the universe, 6 days on Earth would seem like about 15 billion years had passed.
Wow.
So when you have the perspective of the Bible, you can see God created the world in 6 days. He's very adamant about this because he multiple times throughout Genesis, Exodus, throughout the entire Bible tells us, as I created the world and the universe in 6 days and rest on the seventh, you also will rest on the seventh. When you change your perspective and you look through science, it's not necessarily that science is wrong. They're just taking it and trying to use it in the wrong place. And it's one of those things where I very much so enjoy getting to talk with people who are very staunchly against the Bible because of science. Because the universe speaks of the Lord in every which way. There is nowhere you can't see God. And even with one of the biggest theories that is used to debunk Christianity, God is still there. If you just can shift your perspective around a little bit.
You know what, Matt? I think that God has saved some things, surprises, discoveries for the very end of time, when things get really dark and really heated and the enemy is working overtime to deceive. I feel like there's going to be some stuff come out, either archaeological or something that's going to make the whole world go, whoa. I just There's already a few things like that.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, all the archaeological stuff only proves the Bible is true.
Oh, 100%.
Well, I mean, we didn't have any physical proof outside of the Bible that Sodom and Gomorrah ever existed.
Yeah.
Until
They
50
found
some
those
years
sulfur
ago.
balls.
Yeah, they found this city that had sulfur balls that were the most pure that had ever been seen on the earth.
Did you see the thing that they said about finding Lot's wife?
No.
Yeah, they just found it. The water levels are lowering in that area, like really, really bad, to the point where they found a pillar of that salt, and it was pointing into the direction of the city.
What?
Within
Really?
like a certain mile of it, and it was on top of a mountain too, and it's the shape of a person.
Wow.
Huh.
They just found it like maybe a few months ago. I saw the
Wow.
Oh, that is so cool.
That's just what I was thinking of, but I didn't know that.
Well, you know, there's definitely things that God has said, because He says in Proverbs that it is the delight of the Lord to hide a thing, and the delight of kings to search it.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where, you know, there's, as time goes on and as we get more and more in the Spirit and as we search more for God, I mean, He's going to be everywhere. It's just a matter of how quickly can we find Him. But so that's, you know, kind of the first thing, which again, I think that's such a beautiful thing, because creation is such an amazing miracle.
Mm-hmm.
And again, scientists have tried to use the Big Bang to discredit creation, to discredit God, and even there, he's still present.
Because the Big Bang states that it took 15 billion years.
Because of the different tests that they run, that everything is this many years old.
Yeah, but it all has to start with something.
Mhm.
Even the Big Bang, there has to be something that
Mhm. So either you believe in the eternal dust or the eternal God.
Yeah.
I know who my money's on.
Mhm.
But the next point that I like is in the book of Joshua. And it is one of the coolest stories when you think about how it comes out. But in Joshua 10, 7 through 14, you have the story of when Joshua was in battle, and this is where he asked the Lord if the sun can stand still. That, you know, he needs more time, and he asked the Lord, will you please just halt the sun?
That's amazing.
Which, yes, is an incredible miracle. But in Joshua 10, starting in verse 7, it says, so Joshua went up from Gilgal, and he and all the people of war with him, and all the valiant warriors. And Yahweh said to Joshua, do not fear them, for I have given them into your hands. Not one of them shall stand before you. So Joshua came upon them suddenly. He had gone up marching all night from Gilgal. And Yahweh threw them into confusion before Israel. And he struck them with a great slaughter at Gibeon, and pursued them by the way of the ascent of Beth-horon, and struck them as far as Azekah and Makkedah. Now it happened as they fled from before Israel, while they were at the descent of Beth-horon, that Yahweh threw down large stones from heaven on them, as far as Azekah, and they died. There were more who died from the hailstones than those whom the sons of Israel killed with the sword. Then Joshua spoke to Yahweh in the day when Yahweh gave over the Amorites before the sons of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, O sun, stand still at Gibeon, and O moon in the valley of Ajalon. So the sun stood still, and the moon stopped. Is it not written in the book of Yashar? And the sun stood in the middle of the sky, and did not hasten to go down for about a whole day. And there was no day like that before it or after it, when Yahweh listened to the voice of a man.
Wow.
For Yahweh fought for Israel. And that on its own is, that's one of the miracles that I have found to be so amazing. Because not only do you have Joshua simply, seeing that this miracle has happened, but you have someone who is so trusting of God, is so firm in his faith, is following God to such a degree that he can ask the Lord to halt the sun in its tracks, and God does it. I mean, that's a level of faith which is just, it's amazing.
Have you heard that there's, I don't know how this works, but they're looking for the lost day. When the people who study the calendars, the seasons, the movement of the stars, they say that somewhere thousands of years ago, there was a day that they can't trace. Somehow it's like the lost day. And they can't figure out where that day went.
Well, that
It's
actually,
in Joshua, they
it's just not.
did they wouldn't understand where it went.
Well, that actually very perfectly kind of leads into the point that I have with this verse. Because you have almost all of the ancient cultures, whether it's the ancient Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Sumerians, the Mesopotamians, they all had calendars that showed 360 days in a year. And then a lot of them, such as Egypt, they have myths as to, somehow we got extra 5 days. And we went from 360 days to 365. I mean, with the Egyptians, they said that the sky goddess was pregnant. She had been banned from having any of her 5 children during the day by the sun god Ra. And she basically had somebody play a game of poker for her to get.
Story.
Oh yeah. To get moonlight from the moon god till they had enough for 5 days. And that's where, 5 extra days came from. 'Cause that,
I heard there's 13 months and 1 resurrection day.
well, and a lot of them too depends on their, they had different calendars for the annual calendar and then ceremonial calendars. But the original, because and the Egyptians are a little messy because of how their belief system works. But the point of that being just that, you have the original people that we do have some reportings of all claiming 360 days in a year. And, we even have the Mayan calendar, which ended in 2012, and the original calendar at one point started 360 and then shifted to 365.
Because you mentioned, because my question, how you told me it was, okay, Joshua asked for a day, so why was it 5 days?
And well, when you look at, and it actually, the answer is somewhat shown as well when you have the fact that there's all these meteors that were raining down. And this is all speculation. There's no way of proving it, because as it says right here, there's never a day that was like it before, and there never has been a day since. But Earth and Mars, we share a similar path around the sun. And there are a lot of times where Earth and Mars will actually get pretty close when it comes to space distances. And this again is pure speculation, but there are some astrologers who have held the opinion that in Joshua, what we are seeing is that Mars and Earth were so close that we impacted with each other's gravitational fields. And that Mars, as it was going away from the sun in its annual orbit, and as Earth was going towards the sun in its orbit, it passed by each other enough so that Earth would have actually picked up just a tad bit of speed as Mars passed by, and Mars would have lost just a little bit as it went by. And then, you know, when you look at Mars, it's got a lot of rocks and debris floating around it, which would then explain why all these meteors are raining down. Which, you know, because we can tell that there's intelligent design because things fit together.
Oh, yeah.
There's a way that they fit that doesn't work out if you just throw a bunch of random stuff out. And so it made me wonder, because, you know, if we had 12 months of 30 days, that would be 360 days per year. And Mars is very similar because they're simply double our year. And if they had 720 days, then they could either have 24 months or 12 months of 60 days. But they have 687. And they are 33 days off of that kind of even number, whereas we're 5 off. But when I heard that and I kind of looked into it a little bit, it made me wonder if that was true, then from Joshua's perspective, he just says, Lord, please, I need your help. Can't win this in a single day. Can you please, you know, give me some more time? And he just sees the sun stop during that day. And if it is true, if that theory is true, where Mars and Earth did pass by close enough to impact each other, then from the perspective of heaven, at the moment of creation, God put Mars exactly in a specific place in its orbit, and he had Earth exactly in a specific place in its orbit. So that thousands of years later, when Joshua says, Lord, I need you, he had already done it. He had already helped Joshua. Everything, those dominoes had already been set up, and they've been falling.
Right.
And that one moment where Joshua says, Lord, I need you, it was done. God didn't have to step in. He had already done what Joshua needed. And it's one of those things where I love it too, because in China, they even have a myth of a long night, of a night that never seemed to end. And it's just one of those things where the Bible has such amazing treasures. If you look, and we get stuck in the way that we look at something so often. And if we can shake ourselves out of it and look from a different way, or look deeper, or just change where we're looking, it's just beautiful.
I had a man tell me one time, and he was a wealthy businessman. He said, you know that story about Joshua's group marching around the walls of Jericho 7 times? He said there was nothing spiritual about that. The walls were made of limestone, and they were old limestone walls, and just the vibration from the people walking around it caused the walls to just crumble naturally. And it's like, really? Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah. But I mean, again, the world's perspective of something opposed to what the spiritual perspective was.
Yeah.
It's like there's always an answer for what God does in the natural. It can't be God. It's a natural phenomenon.
Well, it's a thought to think about what God has started with it when he created the world. What did he do that we, or me, or you, or whoever might be praying for? To think about. Maybe God has something big that's going to happen that he knows I was going to pray for. That's kind of a cool thought. I didn't ever think about that perspective.
Yeah, that's exactly the
Even
point.
if that guy was right, okay, it was God who God who told the children, I want you, and they all thought, and I'm sure, like, if I was there, I'd be like, wow, that's weird.
What in the world are we doing?
That's just weird. But I'll do it. But, you know, I mean, I think we've all been asked, God has asked us to do something.
Yes.
That's weird.
Mhm.
But you just say, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I'll just
Yeah.
do it anyway. Or you do it scared, or you do it whatever. But, so if that was even, God knew that. So just walk around there 7 times, the vibration's gonna, you know.
I wonder if when Jesus was on the cross and the sky grew dark, It might have been that God the Father knew what day Jesus was going to be crucified, and he might have planned into the whole system a total solar eclipse.
You know,
That
that
happened
is
at
exactly
just
what
that time.
astrologers have found.
Really?
Because they have found that in the year 33 AD, there was a complete solar eclipse,
Really?
followed that night by a blood moon.
What?
What's fascinating is I've had a couple people
Wow.
through the years that as soon as they hear a scientific explanation, they're like, oh, well then God didn't do it. It's not a miracle, there's a scientific explanation. But if you think about it, God is outside of time. And he knows everything. So when Joshua prayed to him, I mean, he's outside of time. So it's like, okay, back to the beginning of time, bloop, he sets it in place. And then to us, it was eons ago. But to him, since he's outside of time, he
Yeah.
literally can't do anything
Yeah.
at any point. That's his perspective.
Yeah. Well, and you know, it was somewhere to explain the idea that, you know, we have free will, but our names are already written in the book of life. I had somebody ask me that, and so I to help have a visual, I took out my phone and I took a panoramic picture of what was just in front of us. And I showed him and I said, well, if you imagine that this panoramic picture is all of time, the very left of the screen is the beginning, the very right is the end. This is the entirety of everything. How we see a panoramic picture is the same way that God sees time. He doesn't have to look at one moment and kind of scan his way through. He can just look all the way from the beginning to end at once. And he can see, you know, okay, you know, right here, Matthew hasn't accepted Christ into his heart yet. But right here, he's accepted him, so I'm going to go ahead and write his name in. And he sees this at the beginning of time. It doesn't negate that we have free will. We still make that choice. He's just able to see that when we can't, when we're stuck in now, and he's not. But, okay, thanks.
So good.
Sorry.
Now we get to the Passover. If y'all want to turn to Exodus 12, verse 29. The Passover is mentioned, and the Exodus of Egypt is mentioned multiple times throughout the Bible as being one of God's greatest miracles to prove to the Israelites that he is Lord and that Israel is his people. And it's one of the things where when you look at the different miracles and plagues that Moses did, you absolutely see God's complete and total power. What is so great, though, is in Exodus 29, when the first ever Passover is occurring. What would you like to read? Exodus 29. I'm sorry, you always need to be ready to give an answer.
I would love to read Exodus 29. And it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne, unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of cattle. Period.
I know it's a very shocking
Carry
thing.
on, yes, it was. Took me off guard.
And Pharaoh rose, verse 30, and Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants, and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead.
So you have the Israelites, where to them this is their freedom. This is God releasing them from years of servitude, from slavery, from abuse, and it's something that they still to this day honor, Passover. because they are respecting the fact that the Lord, when they were in trouble, the Lord came and he released them.
Yeah.
And so many things throughout the world, when you really break them down, you can see that it originates in the Bible. Whether it be other religions, superstitions, whatever the case is, you can find and trace it back to the Bible. And there was a gentleman, Immanuel Velikovsky, who wrote a book, and he was looking at the Jewish calendar. And in his book, Worlds in Collision, he found when he traced back to when the first Passover was, it fell on a Friday, and it was the 13th of the month.
Oh.
So it fell on Friday the 13th. Now you have, in the secular realm, this day is all of a sudden the just most unlucky day. It's just a terrible day, which makes sense. Because to the world, this was the day that all of a sudden, without any understanding of their own, any firstborn, animal or person, just dropped dead. From the Israelites' perspective, this is one of their favorite days. This is a day that they celebrate with great just joy when it comes around each year. And it's something where so often the world will take something that is holy and they're afraid of it. Because even if they don't want to admit it, they understand you cannot have something that is earthly and God in the same place together. It does not mix. It's the antithesis of each other. You cannot have sin. You cannot have something secular and the things of the Lord. And it's, I mean, again, you have one side, one of the best days of their history. And on the other side, you have a superstition and tradition that has lasted for over 4,000 years. And it still is going on today because the world understands the power of God. Now, can't really talk about having perspectives without talking about Job. He's a perfect example of when you have a heavenly perspective versus an earthly. I mean, the entire book, you have his friends, his wife, which, I mean, I've always heard so many people joke about the fact that his wife stayed and lived through that entire thing. So the devil must have known what he was doing when he left Job with his wife. But in the first chapter of Job,
Burn.
That's deep.
I cracked up when I first saw
I
that.
realize this is a real majority of
Same thing about all of it. He's saying something just about Job's particular wife.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
Rush, how is it when you have a wife who's not pleasant?
It's not pleasant.
That's testimony of that.
So in Job, in the first chapter, we get this scene getting set up. And in fact, if you were looking at it as a play or a movie, this would almost be like a narration that's occurring, where you have heaven, you have the devil standing before God, and God basically just asking, what do you want? Why are you here? And the devil saying, well, hey, you got this guy who really likes you, who follows you, who listens to you. I want to take a crack at him because I don't think he follows you because you're God. I think he follows you because you protect him and you've given him a good life. Yeah. And we get, as the reader, we get some knowledge that Job is not fortunate enough to be privy to in verse 12. Because in verse 12 of the first chapter, it says, then Yahweh said to Satan, behold, all that he has is in your hand. Only do not send forth your hand toward him. So Satan went out from the presence of Yahweh. And God gives Satan a little bit more rope to hang himself with as the chapter and the book goes on. But we get this premise here in the very beginning of Job that Job's stuff it's up for anything. Devil can do whatever he wants to do with his stuff. When it comes to Job himself, God is still going to protect him. And we see where God tells Satan, you can't kill him. You can take his health, you can take his family, you cannot kill my servant. Job doesn't know this. Job doesn't see this conversation. Job doesn't hear this. He's just going about his day. He's going about his life. And all of a sudden, all this stuff just starts happening. He's got his kids killed when the barn gets knocked over by wind. He starts losing all his cattle. He starts losing his money. And to him, he's got the worst luck in the world right now. He went from being honored amongst his peers, being someone who was known to follow God, and he's just having just about the worst life in that moment that anyone could have. And we still see, though, that he says in verse 21 at the end of chapter 1, and he said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return there. Yahweh gave, and Yahweh is taken away. Blessed be the name of Yahweh. And that's something where that's one of those verses where you can see how Christians are supposed to act. I mean, this is someone where we can see that Job's going to be okay in the end. We can see that God's saying, I'm protecting this man. This man is mine. You can't have it. Job doesn't see this, and he just starts seeing everything around him crumbling and falling away. And no matter what happens, he refuses to curse God, and he still blesses him. And I mean, that was one of those things where after yesterday, I wondered how much did Charlie's family want to yell at God. I mean, that's something that a lot of y'all would understand, that feeling of you just lost somebody. And it's so easy in the flesh to try and yell at God and blame him. To say that, you're in charge of everything, you could have done something different. You could have done something that I would have liked more. Oh,
I was there
absolutely.
yesterday.
Yeah.
I thought it was unfair.
Yeah. And I mean, how many times do we hit that where our flesh is saying that exact thing of this isn't fair?
Well, it
This
is
isn't right.
perspective, because when you think about God, he doesn't look at death like we look at death. That's the perspective. And we look at death like something from you, and God looks at death and says, and so the perspective is all checked up.
Well, when even in Job at the end, when he gets everything returned to him twice, he had 10 children. He didn't have 20 children given to him at the end of the book. He was given another 10 children. God, in his perspective, God was looking at Job. Excuse me, sorry, sir. I think you left your phone.
That was precious.
He just closes the door. Why did you
Oh man, I think he flew away.
Never see it.
The river, they won't be back.
And you hung up on it.
I actually, there was a pastor I heard who, anytime someone's phone would ring during the sermon, he would always tell them they should pick up and be Jesus. Jesus calling. But yeah, it was one of those things where it actually took me a couple times of reading through Job to pick up the fact that his cattle, his possessions, his money, it was all double. His children, he was given the same amount of children. Because in God's eyes, Job now has 20 children. Job hasn't lost the first 10 children. His first 10 children are still there. Job just has to wait a little bit of time to get there.
Yeah. I love that.
Well, when it was one of those things where I'm looking, I was like, wait a second, he already had 7 sons and 3 daughters. He's supposed to have 14 sons and 6 daughters. And it's like, no, God was very intentional. He gave him double children. From Job's perspective, it might have been like he just got, the same number of children back.
Well, you need to feel sorry for his wife.
That's right, that's what I said. People are so hard on her because of what she said to him, but she lost those kids too.
Yeah.
And many of us, when I look at my widow ladies, and there was times when our husbands passed, we all prayed, we all had faith to believe that they were going to make it. And I just knew God was going to heal them. And he did it. And not in the way I wanted. And
Shook my face.
and I didn't talk to God for months. Like I was like, I'm not going to talk to you, don't talk to me. Like I just couldn't.
Which is so sad because that's right when you need him.
That's exactly when you need him.
At the end of
But you're so hurt when that happens and your faith is shaken so much. So I have compassion on her. Because if we lost one child, we would be totally devastated. But if you lost, like Cheryl, if you lost all your kids at one time,
I know.
I mean, goodness,
Yeah.
You'd hardly be able to pick yourself up.
Well, I mean, as much as Job is an example of how Christians should respond, his wife is an example of how the flesh responds.
Yes.
I mean, like you just said, you can't
We're all
blame her.
guilty at times.
Right. I mean, you have something where you've lost your kids, you've lost your house, you've lost your husband's health is gone.
Yeah.
I mean, you've lost everything, and you're just trying to figure out from what you can see, from what the world can see. You're just trying to figure out how do I make this stop.
Yeah.
So your perspective from the spiritual angle, Job looked at it in a spiritual sense that I've lost everything, but I'm not turning on God, no matter what.
Right.
The rich young ruler was given the same choice. If you have this material stuff taken away, come follow me. And he chose just the opposite. The material things were more important than God. So you have a completely flipped perspective of 2 different cases.
I think it's interesting too that when it happened, and I alone have escaped to tell you. It says in verse 20, then Job arose, tore his robe, shaved his head, and fell to the ground and worshiped. And in all these things, Job did not sin with his lips or charge God with wrong. So that is a heart condition.
Yep.
It is.
And it's like, if we will, in our deepest grief, fall to the ground and worship, I think we will get a heavenly perspective. I know the Lord gave me a vision when two of my boys walked through the door at Elon's house and said that Jeff had died about 30 minutes before. It was like instantly I could see him in the presence of the Father, just being loved on. And so I was like kind of laughing and crying at the same time. And it was so glorious, and it is a very hard thing to understand when you know that God is mighty and strong enough to do something about your trouble. He could have done something about it, and yet he chose this, But like for Charlie Kirk, what a great reward.
Yeah.
I mean, he was hit so fast that he just wakes up in the presence of God with his full reward. And it was when we first got the message yesterday to pray for him that he had been shot I wrote something out about the enemy wanted to silence his voice, but we're praying that God would actually amplify
Oh,
it.
it's going to be 10 times.
And the minute I sent that, you know what the Lord said to me? He said, remember Keith Green?
Yeah.
Remember what?
Keith Green.
These youngsters probably
And
remember.
that's when I knew that Charlie wasn't gonna make it. Because God's way of amplifying his voice, his message, and there's people that didn't even know who Charlie Kirk was.
Right. They
But
do.
they're all listening to him. I mean,
Yeah.
you turn on, he's being, these clips and everything.
He's saturated. Media
Oh,
is
yeah.
saturated in everything.
And the Lord will bless his widow.
Yeah.
And I bet he will bring someone into her life that will love those children like their own. And time will heal. But Charlie was brought very, very quickly into his reward. And yes, his voice has been amplified
Well,
in a way
it was
that
a great reward.
he could have never done that any other way.
When we look as mothers, I've got my daughter's 32. Golly. And what he's accomplished is amazing. It's so amazing. He's turning 32 next month.
Yeah, I thought he was mid to late 30s at least.
Yeah, no. 31.
He started his ministry turning point when he was 18.
18.
Straight out of high school.
Well, I'd like to know what's gonna happen with this company, like, is somebody, is there a partner? So who's gonna,
He's got 300 employees.
I was going to say,
I'm sure they had done something
right.
for it. You know, when you have something that large.
When he's
they
commented
usually
that
is an
he
exit
knew
plan
that
or
he'd be in the crosshairs of the
Yeah,
world.
well, he had a security, they knew, like, he has been threatened,
Yeah.
and they knew that he was at risk.
Well, he's commented that, and
Yeah.
he said that he's still willing to defend us to share the truth. I'm sure he probably had word thinking.
Was Paul warned not to go back to Jerusalem because they were going to kill him? Same thing. Well, in the flesh, you would run from Jerusalem, but he went back to the enemy's camp.
I gotta wonder how many times Paul was brought back to life. Because you know he didn't keep his mouth quiet, and he started running off and places that in the flesh you wouldn't have been wanting to. You gotta wonder how many times did God be like, hey, Paul, stop coming to me. Gotta go back.
So once again, he marched in the face of imminent danger for his message.
Well, and definitely after the testimony of that with her friends.
Yeah, Matt asked me if I had a point or something to add to this, and the only thing I really thought of was when my perspective permanently changed, and it's actually very similar to Cheryl's in the same thing too. My best guy friend in college, one of the kindest, sweetest, just man of God that I knew, name is Jeff, and he got cancer. And my best friend they weren't engaged yet because he got diagnosed, and they didn't want to get engaged, and in their words, be like a Nicholas Sparks novel. But during the process, she was his support. She dropped out of college to stay with him and his family while he went through all that he went through, and it was just, he was like 21, 22.
Oh, wow.
It shouldn't have, it was one of those things where the doctors kept saying, well, it could be this, it's not gonna be this, there's no way, and like every time it was just worse and worse and worse. And he was believing God to be healed, but he was believing at the very, very, very last second to get healed. And
Because then there's no question of the fact that was God.
Yeah.
It could not have been a doctor who could take credit for it. It was, the mentality of, I'll be healed when it's 100% obvious that this is a miracle and that this is God.
And I do believe that was possible, but what's dangerous with that is he saw Jesus and he saw heaven and he didn't want to come back.
Wow.
So I was in the room when he passed. I was with his family, his friends, stuff like that. It was a couple of days. It was really turning bad. And it was a time when it was one of the most times that my spiritual eyes were open. Because at the time I wasn't sure, but looking back I knew. Because, for instance, he'd slipped into a coma, and I walked into the room, and I could sense him. I knew he was mildly freaking out because he didn't know what was going on. But he was out of it. Like, he was unconscious, but I knew. And then a little while later I came in, and he just was not like that anymore. Well, they had medicated him up. He was like deep asleep at this point. But anyway, when he did pass, it was when I really saw how thin the veil is between our existence, earth. It was literally like looking into the next room. Wow. With like a gauzy veil. Like I could just, it was that close. It wasn't like super far up. It wasn't that I was out of my body. It wasn't that I was swept up into heaven. It was literally like the next room over. Just shifted a little bit. And it really, really showed me just how close we are to the Lord, heaven, eternity, spiritual stuff. So that really my perspective changed. And I talked with like Matt and Mom and stuff like that for scripture that kind of show, heaven being that close. And the only ones we could really fully come up with was just when he says, like, I abide in you, his kingdom come on earth as in heaven. Just all of the things where it says that we are so close to him. And then like in Matthew, in the veil tore, it makes it so that we have access to the Lord and the Holy Spirit, and we are able to see that and that kind of thing. But anyway, so he was my best guy chum, and he was a lovely, lovely fellow, and always had a very unique perspective on stuff. And so it drives me a little nuts that he's met Jesus before I have. It's kind of one of those things. But it is so funny because he was such a dear friend to me, and I know it just tickles him like crazy to know that he basically had such a huge impact on my just general view of life. Because after that, like, whenever I think of keeping like eternity in mind or thinking a heavenly perspective, I think of that day when I saw Jeff, because at that point it was like I could see eternity, and it really wasn't that. Jesus had him, like he had him, and I remember Jeff just kind of, I can't remember whether he looked at me or I just knew, like he just was like, it's okay, you'll be okay. And I also knew because up until then I had like flowing tongues, huge prayer, I was in there, and then as soon as I saw this, done. Like, I mean, you can always kind of pray in tongues, but like it was just not there.
And when he looked at you, was it the Jeff and the bad, or who were you seeing when he looked at you and you knew it was going to be okay?
It was Jeff. It wasn't the Jeff and the bad. He was standing up. He was looking weird. I could tell that he could see heaven.
And was it like going through a doorway, or what did it look like when you knocked?
I didn't see him actually move. I just was aware that he was there, kind of on the other side of this, almost like a gauzy veil, and Jesus was like beside him or behind him. Like he was with Jesus. He was fine. He was good. So he didn't want to come back.
And who was the boy with you? Do you remember the little short gal?
That was one of Jeff's best friends.
And she had such tremendous faith.
Yeah, that was hard because she didn't see what I saw. And she was very confused as to why he didn't get healed. Because up until that point, he had said, he's going to heal me at the last second, he's going to heal me at the last second. And I remember her looking to me, and I just kind of shrugged because the prayer was gone. There was no more prayer coming, and it's like he made his choice. Like,
you have to give gratitude to God. He is a healer, but he doesn't always do that. The verse that comforted me so much, and still I didn't have to think about it with Charlie Kirk, it's Isaiah 57:1, where it says, have you even considered that when a righteous man dies before his time, that the Lord is basically protecting them from the evil that is to come.
Yeah.
And it's almost like that's his reward.
Yeah.
He gets to come early. It's like, oh, okay.
Because you actually kind of have a more personal perspective of that thing. Because I mean, when you had your accident, you could feel that you were going to heavenly places.
Oh, like I popped out of my body. And to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord and with the Holy Ghost. But that is the Spirit of Christ. So I stood on the road, but he was behind a veil, and the Holy Ghost was clear. And he was the Jesus that we know and love, only more real and an understanding. You know, there was just like an understanding of the reality of who he is, and that he's always been with us, always, and he still is. And it wasn't, like he said, heaven, the kingdom of God is in us, and the kingdom of God, the glory of the Lord is upon the earth because of what Jesus did. And so it's not really far away. Sometimes it feels like heaven is so far away, but it's, like you said, it's like in just the next room.
Do you think that Deacon Stephen, when he was about to be stoned and killed, he knew his fate was approaching, but yet the Bible says he had the countenance of an angel? Do you think while he was preaching to him, he actually saw into heaven?
Absolutely.
And actually saw Jesus applauding him and just pray, standing up, and it had to be encouraging to like finish that speech, because you see what's awaiting you. Or why would you have the countenance of an angel? Why would you have so much peace when you've got a crowd out there with stones that get ready to kill you?
Yeah.
And you're at peace and you look like an angel?
When
Do you think he saw something?
And it says, when he smiled as he went to be, and he passed on. Like, stoning is not, you get hit with a pebble as a car driving by, that stings. Like, that hurts. You got, a whole crowd chucking rocks at you. That's not going to feel good. And he was smiling. That's just... Well, and didn't you even say, though, that when that happened, that you couldn't understand why everyone was sad?
Yeah, I couldn't, he was really upset. I couldn't hear him, but I could see he was so upset. And I knew what it was to be upset, but I couldn't believe what it felt like. I couldn't feel pain. I couldn't feel unhappiness. It's like I was aware of what it was, but it didn't affect me. It was like an amazing, amazing place.
Wow.
And doesn't the word tell us that we're not supposed to fear man who can kill our body, but to reverence God who has our soul? Yeah.
Yes.
Which martyr was it in Fox's Book of Martyrs that was burned at the stake? Holly something?
Polycarp?
Polycarp. This guy was burned at the stake. Before they took him in there, one of his friends apparently said, if you don't feel any pain or anything, our faith will be strengthened. Just raise your hand so that we can know you're okay. As the story goes. And sure enough, as he's burning at the stake, the story goes, he raised his hand.
Wow.
That's documented in Fox's Book of Martyrs.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So again, oh death, where is your victory? Where is your sting?
That's right.
Even when Jesus was about to be crucified, the world perspective was, we've got him. We've just killed him. Our problem is over. But in the spiritual perspective, it's like, oh no, it's just beginning. You talk about silencing a voice. Oh, did they not know what the world would hear from now till eternity?
That's right.
That voice would be so magnified in the earth. What they thought was death of that message was only the beginning of the amplification.
And that Carmen skit was just so powerful. If you remember, whenever it started counting backwards, and the judge was like, "What are you doing?" It was. You probably don't know what I'm talking about. No.
So the funny part of that story I love is, so Satan is celebrating. I got him.
Yeah.
And he's so happy. And then all of a sudden, Jesus shows up
Yeah.
and grabs the keys of death, hell, and the grave from Satan. Don't you know he was surprised?
Oh,
It's like, where did you come from? I killed you. You're dead.
Well, and that's something that always just, there's so many things where it's just in my mind. I very much so have quite a sense of humor, and I kind of, there's a lot of things where I think God very much so planned something out to kind of have that chuckle. And I cannot remember for the life of me right now what book it's in, but it says that, you know, when the 3 days that Jesus was in the tomb, he was preaching to the prisoners, and he was in hell preaching to those that had been in prison. And it's like just the idea of, you know, like you were saying, you know, Christ is on the cross and his heart breaks and he just gives out thunder's clapping. And Del's like, hey, we did it, guys! And he just turns around and he sees Jesus standing there. And just like, oh no, buddy, you're about to hear even more right now.
Yeah, rude awakening.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, if you really think of how God set it up for us, it really is amazing and remarkable. We really don't have anything. If you really think of how he set it up. And okay, this is very, very silly, but this came home to me recently. We went we watched Return of the King for The Lord of the Rings, if you guys know what that is at all. Basically, it's not important if you do. It's the end where they're really doing like their Hail Mary. Like the king is coming back and they're just doing all they can, and it looks like all is lost, and the bad guy's really big, and the bad guy really won. And I'm sitting there and I realized that like that is not at all where we are sitting. Because the main characters, the main royalty and stuff in the story, if they don't succeed, this bad guy has just like overcome everything, and it's like a last ditch effort. Whereas with us, Jesus already conquered the grave. God is completely in control. He is outside of time. He has already written the story, beginning, end. He already knows the ending. We're sitting pretty. And like we're just basically down here to represent him and try to get as many of our brothers and sisters to see, hey guys, don't go that way. Go this way, you know.
I have another perspective story. About when David went to challenge Goliath. Goliath had all this armor on, except the one small spot right here that was not covered with armor. And the world's view from the Israelites was that target is too small to hit. But David, in his spiritual authority and his spiritual eyes, looked at it as
right there.
that target is too large to miss. Perspective.
But, you know, with that thing we're just saying, it you know, exactly what one of my favorite verses is, which is in Isaiah 14. And it's chapter 16. And it's when the king of Babylon is being spoken to from Isaiah. And Isaiah, there's that shift in Isaiah's message where you can see, wait a second, he's not talking to the king anymore, he's talking to Lucifer. And I just love in verse 16 where he says, those who see you will gaze at you. They will carefully consider you, saying, is this the man who made the earth tremble, who caused kingdoms to quake? When we get to heaven and we have the perspective of Jesus, we're going to look at the devil and we're going to be like, really?
What?
That's him?
He's a big bluffer.
Yeah.
He actually is stripped of all of his authority.
He's like a little gnat. Just, go away.
How big do you think they are in the natural? The Bible says you can put them under your foot. So they have to fit under your foot. So they must not be very big.
No.
So why are they so scary? Now, if I see a big old roach, now that will scare me, but yet he can be under my feet.
Yeah.
When my son was I think he was probably in like second grade, I think. There was a kid in the school, we went to Christian school, and this kid was a bully. He was the biggest bully. And I walked in after school day to pick him up, and he had a big red spot on his cheek. Whenever I got him from, I was hot. Like, I have a little bit of a temper,
No, I've never seen that.
And I saw that and I said, what in the world, who hit you? And he said, that was, and he called you a name, so we got into it. And I said, well, first of all, you don't need to fight any battles for me, fight my own battles. I said, but let me see that kid. He was a little, like my son, Michael, it was a big kid, like he was big. And this little bitty kid was the terror of the school. And I said, you have got to be kidding me. That little one over there is the one who's been terrorizing everybody.
Wow.
And I stomped into the principal's office and
That's
ultimately,
preach though, because fear is a liar.
fear is a liar.
And the only way it has any power in your life is when you believe the lie.
Right.
Satan doesn't have any authority over us.
Well, they didn't even come to our church. I told the principal, I said, you're gonna do something about that kid, or we will. And
Renee's like, I can take him.
my kid can take him. But anyway, that kid ended up not going to that school any longer, but it was because he had put the bluff in on a lot of those children, a lot of those kids, that he was tough and all of that. He was just nothing but a little pipsqueak. Like I couldn't believe he had done that and got over like that. So the perspective was not until it was shown, the light was shown on it.
When it breaks the lie.
It just broke the lie.
Have you heard the story about Lester Summerall and the demon that showed up in his bedroom?
This guy, he's very, very strong man of God, and he was saying that this one night, he woke up in the middle of the night, and he said that his windows had blown open, just inside his bedroom, it felt like there was just a tornado. Just the wind was whipping around, everything was flying around, and his bed was normally like most people's are, the headboard was against the wall. It had been like dragged by this wind into the center of the room. And he's kind of a little groggy, but he can tell this is something spiritual. So he puts on the armor of God and he says, in the name of Jesus.
It was up in the air.
Oh, that's right, I didn't see. I didn't realize that.
Oh, yeah, and the bed was actually lifted off the ground.
Hold your gas. And none of these details.
Well, apparently it was left in, which I didn't realize. I thought it was
He
just in the center.
told the devil, he says, you put my bed back down on the ground and you put it back there where
Not at first, because his first reaction was, in the name of Jesus, leave.
Yeah.
Get away from me.
They said, no,
And that's exactly, the wind left, and once the wind kind of left and everything died down, he's looking around, he's like, wait a minute. And he said, in the name of Jesus, get back in here, put this bed back where it was, and then leave again.
That's spiritual authority right there.
And the wind came back into his room, it put the bed back against the wall, and it left once again.
Yeah, that only, you can't do that on your own.
No.
That's those times that you are actually anointed with spiritual authority to see clearly and to have faith and to walk it out. There's another version here on that scripture. This is the BBE version. Those who see you will be looking at you with concern,
And they will be deep in thought, saying, is this the troubler of all the earth, the shaker of kingdoms? It's like we'll all be in amazement, like he's the one.
That's amazing. Wow.
Pastor Bill used to always say, like, we can't afford to be impressed with what God's doing. We need to only be impressed with what God's doing. Never be impressed with what the enemy's doing. I love that.
When you look at it, because he can only twist what the Lord has already made.
Yeah, you can't make anything new.
Right. Because I mean, when you look at the Pharaoh's magicians, absolutely.
counterfeiter.
Because you look at the Pharaoh's magicians against Moses. Moses would do something, and the magicians are like, wait, we can do that too. Which I always found amusing, because you can't actually solve the problem. Like, they got all these, they got all the water turning to blood, and the magicians are like, wait, we can turn it to blood too. That's great, can you turn it back? it's kind of nice to have drinkable water. They couldn't turn it back though. And it gets to a point where they actually could not create life though. Because Moses could create the gnats from the dust. The magicians couldn't do that. They can't create life. They could summon the frogs out of the river. They could call on animals. The moment it came to creating something though, they're out of their league. They can't do that. Devil can't create something. He doesn't have enough imagination for that.
And power for it either.
Yeah.
Anybody remember the story about the maniac of Gadara that was full of the devil? Everybody was scared of him and nobody could deliver him. Does anybody remember what happened when he came into the view of Jesus walking toward him? Does anybody know that his reaction?
Groveling.
What happened there?
He was groveling.
Was that the one that was amongst the
Legion.
Yeah, Legion? Okay.
That's one where they went
He's
into the
full
pigs.
of demons.
He was yelling.
He's
at him.
manifesting. Nobody can. I mean, this guy was unhelped. You couldn't help him. But just the presence of Jesus, what happened to him?
Fell flat on his face and started begging.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole town was terrified of him.
Everybody was.
Yeah, he beat up anyone who came nearby, broke any chain or shackle he was put on him. But Jesus comes sauntering up.
So if he has that kind of power over the enemy, and you're going to do greater things, he said, than he did, what are you scared of? I mean, really? I had a pastor friend of mine that died during COVID, but his big thing was always, if you could just see what a big, big God you had and what a little bitty devil was there. His perspective on everything was God's a big, big God and the devil's just a little, little thing. And if you get that, you'll never be fearful of him.
Yeah, like the man of God asking the Lord to open the eyes of his servant to see this.
Yeah.
That when you were talking about the realm, the spirit realm, and how it's just like there's a thin veil there. And there are times that veil feels so thin to us that we just feel like we could just almost reach through and touch it. And that was a reality for him that day. The Lord let him see what was going on.
Y'all you remember the story?
Was it
Elijah.
Elisha was in the cave, and his servant woke up one morning and looked outside and saw all these enemy warriors.
It's a massive army.
Massive army. And he went back and told Elisha, man, they're out there to kill us. Look how many there are. And he was in great fear. And Elisha just said, God, please open the eyes of my servant so he can see.
I always imagined Elisha's response being a little frustrated.
Yeah, it's
Like,
like Jesus in the boat, like, I'm
gotta
in a
deal with
little
this. Come
cave.
on.
Really, what's wrong with you? Go back out and look again. So he goes back out again, and the servant looks, and he sees chariots of fire everywhere that outnumbered the enemy. And then he saw in the spirit instead of seeing in the natural. And that's where that thin veil of the spirit is. You don't see how many angels are at your disposal when you're in need. And the stories and the testimonies of people that will say, you know, my angel protected me from that dangerous situation. Or, you know, I was going to die, but something saved me, you know, brought me through it.
Yeah.
And it's always that thin veil in the spirit where sometimes your faith is strong enough to believe in it, but when you can actually see it, like your eyes are open and you can see in the spirit, that changes your perspective.
That's why I know that Charlie Kirk's guardian angel that day, like slapping off on the job, you know? Like, it was his time, it's appointed unto man. And the Lord knows before we're born what day we're gonna live till. And it was his time to go, and they weren't there at that time to protect him. They were there to usher him in. And they were
it was a glorious thing if only we could see in the spirit realm what happened.
Guided him up to the throne. So
God doesn't do accidents. He doesn't do accidents. It was a glorious homecoming for Charlie. And there will be grace, greater grace given to his wife and children and family, but there's going to be a lot of good from this. He said with Jesus, if I strike the shepherd, then the sheep will scatter. And so that's what the enemy is trying to do, because Charlie Kirk was one of the most respected people. He was actually having an impact on college campuses where the strongholds of woke ideology and socialism and everything, you know, anti-Semitism. I mean, it's just, our colleges are bad places. But he was actually making an impact. People were listening to him. He was having an effect. And the enemy thought that he would silence all of that that came out, but just wait and see.
I'm really, really hoping that, because of this, you'll have a dozen at least individuals that were impacted by him that will start doing the same thing he was doing, in the same spirit that he was doing. Because he didn't just, if you watched his videos, he didn't just go to college campuses to fight or to just push his points. He went to talk to people. You're kind of saying, I don't like debating. I'm angry in 6 seconds. I get tongue-tied, I get frustrated. You actually like debating with people that are intelligent, even if, especially if they have opposite view of you, because of the intelligent conversation you have back and forth. That was how Charlie Kirk was too. He liked having intelligent conversation, different ideas going back and forth. It was fun for him.
Well, he would say, his most common phrase is, he would go to talk because when you don't talk, that's when violence happens.
Right. So I'm really, really hoping that other individuals who have this gift, not me, but other ones that he, like people that he touched at the college campuses, where he really made them think, might step up and start doing it.
Fox News had on there yesterday. I was watching yesterday afternoon, and there was several young men and they were such babies. Like they were just such babies, and I'm thinking, because they're probably 18, 19 years old, and they were interviewing them, and one of them had started a podcast whenever he was in 4th grade. This kid was in 4th grade, and Charlie Kirk went on his podcast and let him interview him. And this kid is now, probably 17 or 18, and they were both, him and the other young man, were both very much impacted by Charlie Kirk, and was part of this, turning point.
Right.
So that was just 2. Can you imagine, because they have been putting on these turning points in different college campuses. They have actual people that are part of that in the colleges. Different chapters. So I would say that this will light a fire for many of them, because they, when you're a talker like that, kid 4th grade having a podcast, can you even believe it? And at that point, there's going to be many of them raise up to be able to fill in the gap. Yeah, and step up to the plate.
Didn't Jesus do the same thing?
Yeah.
He went before the Pharisees and Sadducees, and they questioned him and tried to trick him.
Yep.
And he gave them straight answers every time. They could not trick him into anything, but he spoke directly at them.
Yeah. So
Well,
I
that's
think
what I was very upset to see that take a little break. And I was not upset with the Lord, because I know that He had a plan, and so that that was not part of it, but I was questioning why. And so I got home in time to watch Flashpoint and some of the others, and the answer was there. I didn't get the answer in the car. I got the answer listening to these fellows who said,
Hank Kuhneman, I mean, he cried,
Yeah.
but he said there's going to be many young men lifted up because they're prepared already. And this has lit the fire, this has tripped the switch. And the turned it on. And the enemy just thought he won. What he did was just start them on fire.
I really do.
So if there were 12 apostles and 11 of them, other than John, were martyrs and killed, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. They were trying to spread the gospel and be a witness, and 11 of the 12 were martyrs. But look at the effect of their work, even today.
It's gonna backfire because the younger generation especially, when you get teenagers and kids, sometimes like, one, they wanna rebel against the people above them, that's what they do. And two, especially I feel like the generation coming up, they're looking for something real. And so when you have a man that
You don't
literally
get killed
just
because
wanted
you're
to
lying.
talk, and they saturated social media with his videos where he would have open discussions. And then he's killed, like it's gonna make the kids take a second look and be like, why would they kill him? Like what's going on?
You don't kill someone who's lying.
Yeah, and I don't know, some of my favorite things with him though was, cause you would have people that the first 5 minutes they would be like spouting and awful and evil, and after 5 minutes it's like that, the facade kind of broke and they actually asked honest questions that they were wondering about. And you could see that he actually was able to minister.
He could turn their words back on them.
Yep.
They would have questions. He said, well, that's what you said. I didn't say that. Yes, this is what you said. And so then they get to thinking, because they're so
Muddled.
Well, they're so
upset,
self-focused.
flustered,
It's not the next verse I was going to go to, but growing up, my mom would always say, this life is but a vapor. I mean, to us, it kind of seems like, if you live 80 years or more, that's a long life. And, when we get to heaven,
Sure goes fast.
Yeah,
Well,
when you
yeah.
get to 80,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you go, whew, that was
you get to heaven and you're going to look back and you're going to think, like, why was I ever tired? That just went by like that. But,
When you're doing it, it feels like a long time, but when you get to this side, you go,
when you
wow,
start looking back.
that really went fast.
that weeks
Well,
feel like 2 days.
I found, so I have two last verses. Sorry, three.
This your
I
first
don't
closing?
No.
Your first closing?
We're only letting you
No,
have two.
I have a three-part closing.
We're wrapping up.
But the first one is from Paul in 2 Corinthians, chapter 4 and 16 and 18. And it's something where I really do love it because I found in 2 Corinthians and then the third verse that I'm going to go to is in Ecclesiastes. So I found in the Old Testament and the New Testament the same message. It's different words and different verbiage, but it's the same message. I just love that. But in 2 Corinthians, with chapter 4 and 16, verses 16 through 18, he says, "Therefore, we do not lose heart, but though our outer man is decaying, yet our inner man is being renewed day by day. For our momentary light affliction," which, I mean, for anyone to say this, Paul to say momentary light affliction, I mean, he was in prison more than anyone else, he was abused, and he calls it a momentary light affliction.
Yeah, I think he's about the only one that could pull that off. Without us just being like, okay, Bob.
His momentary light affliction is working out for us an eternal weight of glory far beyond all comparison. And like everyone has said, with Charlie Kirk, it's one of those things where you can definitely, the flesh wants to be sorrowful over it. But when you look in the spirit and you understand, he's got such a reward from what he has gone through.
This is what the Message Bible says on that. So we're not giving up. How could we? Even though on the outside, it often looks like things are falling apart on us. On the inside, where God is making new life, not a day goes by without his unfolding grace. These hard times are small potatoes compared to the coming good times.
Small potatoes.
Those lavish celebration prepared for us.
It's so hip.
There's far more here than meets the eye. The things we see now are here today, gone tomorrow. But the things we can't see now will last forever.
That's pretty funny verbiage for that. I did want to look at it from, because all these verses have been looking at how can we look at the troubles we're going through from God's perspective, from a heavenly perspective. How is it that we can look at the things that are coming against us from that perspective? But I think it's just as important, if not more, to look at what our sin is from a heavenly perspective. Because just as much as when you look at a heavenly perspective, the things of the world seem so small, when you flip that and you take something that might seem small to us in the spiritual realm, it's a very big deal. And in Matthew, in chapter 5, it's the verses where Jesus says, "You have heard that the ancients were told, you shall not murder, and whoever murders shall be guilty before the court." Which so far sounds pretty reasonable. But he follows it up saying, "But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother shall be guilty before the court. And whoever says to his brother, Raka, shall be guilty before the Sanhedrin. And whoever says, you fool, shall be guilty enough to go into the fire of hell." So, you have on one hand, the devil he's small. But it's important for us to understand, sin is not just some little thing.
Right.
And I mean, it's one of the things that I've talked about with a few friends, where Christianity is not a religion. A religion is a set of rules that man says you gotta do if you want to get a good afterlife. Christianity is a relationship. Christianity is because I love God, I'm going to do what he asks.
Exactly.
And it's not even just because I love God, I'm going to do what he asks. Because I love my wife, I'm going to do nice things for her. I don't do that because I'm wanting a response. I'm doing that because I have love for her, so my actions are going to show that. And I mean, right here, Jesus is showing that with that relationship, if we step against him, if we do something that is sinful, that is going to hurt him, it doesn't take much. We might view just, oh, well, this person ticked me off, so I'm going to yell at him. To God, it's like we're standing in front of him stabbing a person. I mean, we can, kind of brush it off, and Jesus is very adamant. He's like, no, this is a serious thing. And I mean, even when he says, which King James softens the verbiage quite a bit. Because King James says, our works are like filthy rags. The original Hebrew says, God was very graphic about this. Our works are like used minstrel cloths. He was in no way quite
sugarcoating it.
Right. He was very adamant that
Filthy rags.
Yeah, when we do something wrong, humans kind of go big for it, and we can view it as small. But Jesus is telling us, no, this isn't just something small. But to end though on a pleasant note. Ecclesiastes 3:11, which again I love when I found this, because I mean, seeing in the Old Testament the same message that Paul states in the New. And I mean, again, I had to finish off with this verse because it just perfectly summed up everything.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
What was that again?
Ecclesiastes 3:11. Be a little patient.
Okay,
Stevie.
come on.
You know, other people are actually following along with their Bibles.
I'm listening. I'm anxious.
Steve just knows all the verses.
Come on.
He's already there.
He's flipping through his head.
Close this deal. Come
He's
on.
so used to looking everything up on the computer and printing out his verses, and
It's just
went
like,
over there and all the Bibles are like little tiny print.
Good to see you.
Get the magnifying.
Get a prospector lens.
Before we jump to the, can I just say a comment on the last thing you said? It kind of made me think too, for the Bible stressing that in my mind, that perspective kind of shifted my perspective of not looking necessarily at the devil as the big, bad, awful, I mean, he is, but more so our sin and what we do. And as humans, the sin and what they do, that's really what God dealt with. That's really what God took care of, was the sin that people actually do and accumulate in their lives is really the real big bad evil. And then you do have the devil who can tend to pull you away and that kind of thing, but if you think about it, really what God dealt with was the sin in people's lives. That
Yeah.
was
The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the boastful pride of life.
because we kind of always see the devil as like that's the big baddie, and he is, but in perspective, the big baddie that God took care of for us is our own sin and stuff that we get tangled in.
Can I give you something to think about that maybe will ease your mind tonight on this assassination thing? Do you think God was surprised when this happened?
Nope, not a bit.
Okay. Number two, does the Bible say it's appointed unto man once to die? That's a certainty.
Yep.
Do you believe that God in his sovereignty decides when it is your time?
Yeah.
So when you question these events, like, why did he get killed? It's not fair. It's not just. And we have these human emotions. You're almost saying, God, you made a mistake. You allowed this to happen, but we feel like you made a mistake because this should not have happened. It's not right. So you're actually questioning the sovereignty of God when he makes a decision when it's your appointed time. He gets to decide that. So whether it's COVID or cancer or a car wreck or an assassination, the first fleshly thing is, God, that's not right. That's not fair. And what we're really saying is, God, you made a mistake. And how dare you look at the glory of God and dare say that he made a mistake? Really? That's pretty big.
We'll look back to Job when God, steps in and says, well, hey Job, you felt like this wasn't right. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth?
Yeah. And Job repented of himself and he said, I heard you the hearing of the ear, but now my eyes have beheld you, and I repent
So when you feel like something happens that's not just or not right and not fair, just remember, God doesn't make mistakes. That was his decision. Do you accept it?
might have to have a hissy fit first. And I usually pray that God would just change my perspective. How many see what
Yeah,
I have to have a hissy fit.
Well, the
And
flesh,
then I get over it.
the flesh reacts, right?
Yeah.
That's what the flesh does.
Yeah.
But Matt's been telling you all night, the flesh perspective is, it's not just, it's not right. But then the spirit has to take over and say, but God, It was your decision.
Right.
You'd never make a mistake. You knew this was going to happen before that person was born.
I get there.
You knew he was going to leave Earth on this day. It did not surprise you.
Well, and I think it definitely is a matter of what you make it happen. Because honestly, yesterday when I first heard that, I could feel my initial response to wanting to do eye for an eye. Be responsible. If you're going to do this, I can do that back to you. I can go and hurt people who say things I don't like. And I could immediately, as that, I felt that fleshly desire rising up, I could immediately feel my spirit saying, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do this.
Well,
And just,
especially if you started watching some of the news, what
Well,
they were
some
saying.
of the
If you knew how many people I have executed when they've done these wrong things, Cheryl will tell you. Isn't that right? When somebody does something heinous like that on the news, you know how I react. I've executed hundreds of people.
Yeah.
And Cheryl will always
Right from
tell me,
this chair.
she will tell me, back to earth, back in the spirit, you can't do that. That's God's
They just
job.
need to take those people out in the woods and shoot them.
That sounds like a plan, that's. I had an old pastor that says, well, that dog won't suck no more eggs.
I mean, like Matt said, an eye for an eye. Hey, if they did this, go spring them up.
Hey, I'm not passing judgment on them. I'm just putting them before the
That's
judge.
right, exactly. But then the spirit side says, oh, no, you're so wrong. God
said,
deals with
love your
that.
enemies.
Oh, and she throws that stuff out. Oh, it's so hurtful. Oh, no.
Well, it's one of the things where
Do this to those who spare.
Oh, that's a hard one.
Yeah, but sometimes God's punishment is a lot worse than ours. Sometimes I think, oh, I don't know about you guys.
But we've been talking about perspective. And if anyone in here has perfect spiritual eyes, then you're exempt from this. Because we all deal with the flesh reaction. Everybody does. And just realize when that kicks up, it's God's the one in control, not you.
Yeah.
Let him rule and reign and do what he wants to
Yeah,
do.
we're not the judge of all
No,
the
but I'd
earth,
like to be
right?
sometimes.
We have to put 50 miles on.
You understand, that's right, Yvonne, yes.
Yeah, but you know, I think that since I've been a mom, it's like, I don't want to do
You go back and forth until you find, the North Star compass, and then you, I'm okay now, calm down. Okay.
Well, I got a question then, because I'm in a situation where I'm the only one that is saved, dealing with a man in power and authority, abusing it, and one person already has been lost to it. He lost his job and his whole life basically from what this guy did, and it's happening now to me, but I'm the only one saved, so naturally I'm not really as worried as they are, about me losing my job or, supposedly getting arrested like the other guy did. But I'm like, is this not in my power now, since I am the one saved, to essentially step up and fight back with the Lord's will? And then I have to remember, is it the Lord's will? But in that moment, in the heat of it all, I'm asking myself, or I feel like this pull of me to almost like an antagonizing feeling of, if I don't say something, then I'm not speaking up for Christ. I'm not putting the Lord's work out there if I don't say something. And it kind of eggs me on to want to fight back more. I don't know when the temptation is there to say am I supposed to fight back or am I supposed to stay quiet?
That's when you pray.
Well, because you got to think about it, because there's two different points there. One, you can't always just simply sit down and pray for every situation. Because like you were saying with David and Goliath, if David just sat down and said, God, you got this, I trust you're going to take care of this, Goliath wouldn't have been killed. David had to act. But, you do have to also think about the fact that Jesus was our prime example of how we should act. And the only times that he got angry is when people were using their authority and power to take advantage of others. And when you look at the synagogue, when he sat for hours and braided a leather whip together. He was furious with the fact that these people in power were taking advantage of those lesser than they were. But like she was saying, you got to make sure that you're responding with righteous anger, with fleshly anger. But it is something where I think when we see people getting taken advantage of, it's very easy for that anger to rise up, because that's something where we have the same view of God. Where when we see something that is not okay, where we see this is an injustice, it's a lot easier for our perspective to get aligned with God's. Because again, those money changers had turned the house of the Lord into a den of thieves. And when you have that, you just got to make sure that, like Steve said,
Might be time to get on
pray
Indeed.
through it.
And find yourself a new job.
This chapter
You know?
that
You just leave that mess alone.
Matt's gonna read
Well,
from
yeah.
Ecclesiastes 3 said, there's a time for war and a time for peace.
Yeah.
There's a time to speak and a time to be silent. So that's part of the inheritance we have, is to walk in the Spirit. And so when you ask the Lord, what's it time for? Just ask him that question, what's it time for right now? And it's not going to be, you'll know the difference between whether it's your flesh egging you on, you're being tempted to do something in your flesh, or God's giving you conviction and zeal to go to war, to make a stand, to let your voice be heard, no matter what it costs you.
Are you sticking up for yourself, or are you sticking up for someone else?
Well, not for me. I have, I'm getting ready to move on to another job, but
That's what I
but the guy that's coming in my place, he's a 19-year-old kid. He has no idea. And the guy that I replaced got arrested on a false police report. And so, like, for me, I'm fine, but I don't want the kid to go through that, being that this is his first job as a mechanic, So I'm still here fighting only for the kid. So that's what I'm afraid of, is I don't want to stay quiet and then the kid comes in.
I think you should say something if it's bugging you like that.
Or take the kid aside and say, hey, this is what you're looking at. Before because if that man if he has the authority over this, it's kind of like the church thing. I'm not going to change the authority. So it might be time for me to move away from that authority that I see as unrighteous. Walk away from that and go someplace else. And let that be that, and let God handle that.
Didn't Jesus say, if they won't receive you, shake the dust off your feet and move on?
Move on.
So sometimes you run into situations where people don't listen to what the Lord is saying to you. You have no choice but just walk away from it.
Right.
That's all you can do.
No, honestly, because you're going to have so few moments in life where you are 100% certain of this is what God's telling me to do. So many of the times you're going to have to pray, and you're going to have to ask yourself, when I'm standing before the Lord, which option is he going to have wanted me to have done? When I stand before the Lord, will he be proud that I bit my tongue, or will he be upset that I didn't take action? And that's somewhere, while you're on earth, until you're in heaven and you can see everything, you're going to have to just make that choice and live with it. And you're just going to have to just try and hope that you're following God's path and praying and asking him for guidance as much as you can. But it is going to come down to that point where rubber's going to hit the road and you got to figure out you're going left or right.
Yeah, remember when that guy killed that girl on the bus?
Yes.
And not one person did anything. Well, this guy's gonna really get in trouble.
Well, those people were looking at the guy with the knife in his hand, thinking,
Well, he passed.
Yeah.
And the other one's gonna run her.
they could have helped her. Is the
There's people right next to it.
not anything with
Yeah,
him.
I don't get it. People are so scared that they won't do anything. I just pray I'm never like that.
When you look at the guy on that subway, that tried to tackle the guy that was acting up.
Yeah.
They tried to convict him as being the bad guy, and he was just trying to prevent the guy from doing anything.
I will say this might work for evil to prosper. All it needs is for good men to do nothing. So that is something where it's definitely when the option is doing nothing or doing something. It's a lot easier if you're stuck between two options of, well, do I do option A or option B? But when it's, do I do nothing or do I do option A? That's when, you definitely, you got, like you were saying, you got to make sure that you're not leaving an opening for someone to be taken advantage of.
Perspective, that's the key word for tonight.
I think he's got one more scripture.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, did you? Okay.
For the entire point of having a heavenly perspective, having a godly perspective, I should say, having your heart and eyes set on eternity. In Ecclesiastes 3, verse 11, he says, God says, He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in their heart, yet so that man will not find out the work which God has done from the beginning, even to the end. Now, I know we're talking about, the joy of God, the height of things, the height of matter, and the joy of kings to seek something out. And he tells us here, though, there's going to be some things where you're not going to know. But he sets eternity in our hearts. He gives us that desire. And he gives us the perspective of eternity. It's just a matter of if we use it or not.
I think that's what Charlie Kirk was really good at, was like identifying that in those kids' hearts and remind, because we used to teach our young Christians, God has set eternity in our hearts, every one of us. Nobody excluded. And so there's a yearning to know God in every man's heart, whether he knows it or not. He's yearning for something, and a lot of these kids, they do other crazy, purple hair, nose rings, I'm a boy, I'm a girl, I don't even know, whatever. But they're yearning for something, and they're looking for something real.
Right.
Yep. They know that there's something missing. Right? I remember whenever I wasn't saved, and I was 27 before I got saved, I knew there was something missing.
Right.
I couldn't identify what that was. I didn't know what that was, so you try to fill it with all kinds of other things, and
Like you got a puzzle and you're just trying to figure out
right.
what shape
And
is
so
that.
knowing that as a Christian, that every person that you come in contact with, God has stamped eternity in their hearts. So if we can get in there and pull that a little bit and let them know what that is and identify it. And I think that's what he was so good at. Like when they were standing at that microphone with their craziness, that he could identify you've got something you want.
You're searching.
You're searching for
And the
something.
question for everybody in the room tonight is, what is your legacy going to be? When you take your last breath, what will people remember you for? Have you made an impact? Have you done anything that's going to have a lasting effect on this world?
Are you going to feel long on my business?
Yeah.
That's the challenge we all have. What will our legacy be? So make the most of the time we have.
Even somebody on Fox was saying yesterday, like, the best way to honor Charlie Kirk's death and to make it not in vain is that every person in the sound of my voice just go out and speak to somebody that you wouldn't normally talk to, about the hope that's in you. If every person did that, that's grieving the situation. I mean, I do believe there's going to be an army of young people
that he's already discipled. You know, like I said, his Turning Point already has 300 employees, and they have chapters in almost every university in the country. But like, it's just as much a message for those of us that come tonight.
Was it anything to see that?
Yeah, and there's updates.
And there's updates and all this stuff going on. The amount of people that got on there, he touched like that fourth grader all the way to Benjamin Netanyahu.
Right.
Benjamin Netanyahu sent a message today saying how he was touched.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Charlie was his friend.
it was his friend, and like, he was my friend. Like, I've known him for 15 years, I've known him for 12 years. And like, and the amount of people on Fox who talked about their Christian walk in comparison with them. You wonder about those people that are on stages and whatnot.
Yeah.
And there was so many of them that was emboldened to speak about their faith yesterday and today.
You have so many people where they never even met him and they still are wanting to feel that if you were still here, they would want to make him proud. Even if they never met him, they still would.
She just said that she quoted a psalm, Psalm 23.
Protect us.
Yeah. I thought that's what
I
she
didn't
Well, Trump
hear. I
even
didn't
said something, and then his daughter